Hello and welcome. It's 12:30. It's the 17th day of September 2022. It is 72 degrees and cloudy here at Site B. Multiple storm warnings hitting here on the West Coast. Very exciting. Also very frightening. Also very exciting. It's Saturday, and today we are talking about death. Bum, bum, bum. In a tabletop role-playing game. And if the topic of a player character death is something that upsets you, you should probably stop watching this. If the idea of a tabletop role-playing game character dying is something that you can't deal with, and you make confusions between real life and the game, maybe you should seek professional help. Let us remind everybody that D&D is a game. Says so right there. Role-playing game. It is not anything else other than a game. It's just a way more complicated version of Monopoly or chess. Okay, so anybody who tells you otherwise, that it's not a game, the death matters, all this other crap, they're just blowing smoke. It's a game. So earlier today, we did a video about the fate of Marisha's character in Critical Role, how she is now at least technically dead, and how Marisha had to get up and leave the table. And knowing the internet the way I do, we can assume that before the day is over, or by this time Monday, there will be at least one, if not multiple posts about this and multiple videos about this and how we should deal with death in the role-playing game. And, Mercer was wrong, and this was wrong, and Professor Dungeon Master, and this is this. And it's a good topic for everybody to jump on because it's always topical. It can always generate heat, and you can always just counteract whatever the other person said. So I know whatever I'm going to say next, there's going to be videos going, oh no, the OGGM is wrong, or oh yeah, the OGGM agreed with me. So yeah, I figured I better jump on it first before anybody else did, unless somebody already has, and I haven't seen any, but I'm going to assume that. So yeah, death, blah, blah, blah. So in order to understand what happened, we need to understand the Revivify spell. So let's look that up first. Revivify is a 3rd level necromancy spell. 1 action, touch. Components are verbal, rise, somatic, and material. A 300 gold piece diamond. So good on them that they just happen to have that many diamonds hanging around, that they were able to do it. You touch the creature that has died within the last minute. The creature returns to life with 1 hit point. The spell can't return to life a creature who has died of old age, nor can restore any missing body parts. So Sam Riegel's character, Fresh Cut Glass, the robot, was able to revivify the other character. The other character had Revivify on tap. I always thought that when you died in the game, if you came back, you forgot your spells and anything memorized, but maybe not. I remember that happening to me hundreds of times, but maybe they changed it? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Somebody had Revivify, and they were down to okay, we've got 1 Revivify, we've got 2 dead bodies. And due to a flip of the coin of all things, really? That's going to get Mercer shit on. They brought back 1 character, which meant Marissa Ray's character is dead. But there are still plenty of ways to bring her back. There is Resurrection, which is a 7th level necromancy, and of course my personal favorite, Reincarnate, which is a 5th level spell. So, and with both of these, you don't need the whole body. You can bring back a piece. Now, of course, the question is, because Marissa's character didn't have a soul that we know of, will Reincarnate still work? And it says under Reincarnate Soul. It says under Resurrection, Soul. So yes, a soul needs to fill whatever the body's going to be if they're going to bring her back. Now, obviously, Wish or Miracle would just counteract either of that, because Wish is pretty much cheat code of the universe. So they could do pretty much anything with Wish. Now, Marissa had to leave the table, and I know there's gonna be a lot of mumble about that. So why did Marissa have to leave the table? There's a couple reasons. One is, which I actually think is cool, and I'm surprised no one's ever thought of this before. If she's not at the table, she doesn't know what's happening to the game, the characters, or her body, and she's not a distraction. Okay? Because now you just got Mercer Ray sitting there going, oh no, I'm dead. What do I do? And, so she could be a distraction. She maybe could be going through personal crisis. We'll get to that in a second. But more than likely, because we know from the way Campaign 3 has been run, there's been an interchangeable cast. There's been people who've been there and left. And Travis started the game with one character and ended up bringing in a different character. So there has already been a history established in Campaign 3 of interchangeable seats. So they could have something, in the chamber that if somebody died, somebody else could fill the spot. She could come back next week and play a different character, or she could be out for the count until they find a way to bring her back, because that way she has no idea what's going on. Also, since we found out that her character was holding the soul of a bad guy from season 3, maybe Mercer's got some stuff planned that he doesn't want everybody else at the table to know about. I mean, he's infamous for that. So he could be using this time to take Marissa off and then discuss with her behind the scenes this scenario of, maybe he could run a session where they're in the land of the dead, and, they could bring back, the other characters could bring back some of their dead characters or NPCs or whatever. We know they've done that before. So yeah. And then when she does come back, if she does, it could be the character you all know and love. It could be a completely different character. I'm thinking she'll come back with a soul and she won't be an unhallowed one anymore, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the soul of the original character. It could be the soul she had before she died and became an unhallowed one. It could be the soul of the character from Campaign 1, or it could be completely different. Or she could go, you know what, she's dead, and I'm going to bring in a new character. Or, you know what, I'm just going to sit the rest out because I'm Marissa Ray and I've got other stuff I need to do. I've got video games to work on. I've got an office to run. Maybe, I don't know, I think she's okay. Okay? And I think no matter what happens, she's an okay. Now, that's where we get to the whole how we deal at death at the table. Now, some people get very upset when their character dies. And a lot of people watching the show will get upset with the results of the show. We know that. It happened last time with Molly Mock, and it happened again this time, and we know it's going to happen in the future. And we know when favorite characters die, people get upset. We know when characters die, players get upset. Now, I'm not one of them. I think character death is hilarious. Because usually when my characters die, it's in the most outrageous, ridiculous method possible. And it's usually funny. And I'm always willing to go, oh, well, you know what? I'll just sit this one out and come in with a new character. I have always believed that the comic book rule applies. Character is not dead who stays dead. Nobody who's dead stays dead in comic books. No player character who's dead will stay dead unless the player wants them to stay dead. Now, obviously, situations like dungeon crawls or DCC funnels or things like that, where like death is death, or you get disintegrated, or in older, versions of the game. But I can think of hundreds of times in personal experience where players, dragged a player's finger around because they knew that they could get them reincarnated and whatever else, And I have gone through multiple situations where I have fought and kicked and crawled to bring a dead character back to life that I didn't think should have been dead. And sometimes it took years, but it was always there. I was always like, yeah. So yeah, it's always out there that if a character's dead, they don't stay dead unless the player wants them to stay dead. And there's multiple ways available to bring a dead character back. Regeneration, resurrection, reincarnate, wish, miracle, magic fountains, outer planar beings. Nobody who's dead stays dead. And if they do, they will always come back. And when they do come back, it's usually in a different body, or they have new powers, or it turns out it was a robot, or it turns out it was a twin. They come back with friends. Yeah, I mean, it's nobody stays dead unless the writer/player stays dead. But we know people get upset when character dies. We know people who are watching Critical Role are going to be upset. We know that people are out there who are going to try and milk this for their YouTube channel and talk about how you have to handle player death and treat your players like precious little eggs and stop the game when a character dies so we can all deal with the ramifications. And that's like, yeah, no. If they're that upset that they're in a position where the game needs to be stopped, then yeah, probably something else needs to be dealt with besides just the fact that their piece of paper took enough points of damage in an imaginary game of make-believe that they're now technically temporarily dead. And let's face it, it's impossible to stay dead in D&D, and it's doubly impossible to stay dead in 5th edition. So if you find yourself in that situation, people are going to tell you, treat them like a broken bird, stop the game. It's like, no, it's a game. It's fun. If they're really that invested that they're upset, then something else is at play, and that's something that needs to be dealt with, but not at the loss of the other 4, 5, 6 people who have come to play and are like, oh, dude, I'm sorry you died in the first 5 minutes, but we still want to play. And the DM's like, no, Scott's upset. We need to stop the game and give him therapy. You're not a therapist, dude, and you're not an attorney, and you should never have the words therapy at your game table because that can just blow up in your face. We've talked about that in other vlogs. So give them time to deal with the death, but then move on, because it's still just a freaking game, and you still only got a limited amount of time to keep everybody's attention and to keep rolling. And if you just stop the game unless everybody says like, yeah, we need to stop the game, Susan's really upset. It's like, no, just give Susan something else to do. Redirect the energy. I'm going to say it one more time. Redirect the energy. Let Susan or Scott or Barry or whoever it is we're talking about, let Steve go like, oh yeah, my character's dead, I'm upset, maybe I need a break, but now I'm back and I still want to invest, I still want to be part. What can I do? How can we redirect the energy that is sitting at the table so that they're moving on from that character to whatever else is next, and we're not just, playing touchy-feely, let's milk the situation for our own personal thing. Because remember, nothing brings people together like the chance to make your tragedy all about them. And here's a perfect example of how you could do that. Remember, that nothing brings people together like when they can make your personal tragedy all about them. So, what do we do now that Marissa's character's dead? What do we do now that Scott's character's dead? What do we do now that Steve's character's dead? We could ask Steve, do you want to get up and leave and take a break? But we're going to still play. Or we can go, hey, Steve, you want to run an NPC until next game? You want to bring in a backup character? This is why you should always have backup characters. You want to play the monsters. And this is my favorite. Because not only does it give them a way to deal with the energy, it takes a load off of the DM's plate. If I hand the monsters over to Marissa and go, oh, you know what, for the rest of the game, you run the bad guys. So it's now Scott against everybody else at the table, and everybody else at the table is like, wait, what? That way, the energy is redirected. Susan still has something to do. They're still part of the game. Everybody still feels like the game. That the death of the character can be dealt with in a situation. They can decide what to do with it. But now she's got the choice. You can go play another character, play an NPC. Play so-and-so's talking sword, play the familiar. Or, hey, do you want to play my bad guys? Here's my monsters. Tell me what they're doing to make these guys' lives miserable. Yeah, and then they're like, I've got all this energy and this grief, but I still want to play because it's a game, and oh no, my character's dead. But it's D&D. My character's going to find a way to come back in some form. Do I want my character to stay dead? Well, that's the thing I need to think about. But still, I came all this way. I want to invest. So now I'm playing an NPC. I'm playing the dog. I'm playing a talking sword. I'm playing the familiar. I'm playing the bad guys. And now here's my chance to get all my anger and frustration out and maybe kick the ass of some of these guys who have been jerks to me during the game. The power! And then the scenario gets over. Susan feels like they've still been part of the game. And then we deal with, okay, what do we do now that Marissa's dead? And I really kind of like the idea of, now that the action's over, you have to leave because you don't know what's happening to your character. I kind of like that, but it also seems kind of unfair because it could take months to bring that character back, and then you've just got Susan going, can I come back and play? Can I come back and play? So there's a couple ways they could resolve that. They could have a one-off where all the other players play different characters, and Marissa plays the spirit of her dead character, and they resolve the fate of that character. That way, nobody feels left out. Or Marissa could come back to the table and play a different character next week, and then just be like, anything. I'm a good enough player to know that anything that happens revolving my dead character is not going to affect the way I play the current character. So now Susan's character's dead. Now Scott's character's dead. Now Steve's character's dead. You've worked through the situation. You gave Steve an NPC to play or whatever. And now you're moving on. Now it's the aftermath. It's like, okay, what do we do? Well, we've got all these options available to bring them back. Most of them cost money. Do we lug the body around? And of course, then the question is asked, well, do you want your character to stay dead, Marissa? Because if you want your character to stay dead, that's fine. I accept that. If you think that character's story has been told, there's nothing left to do with him, great. Chances are Marissa doesn't want the character to stay dead, but we're using her as the example. And then if they want the character to stay alive, they're going to, on subconscious level, be fighting and crawling and, to get that character back into activity, even if they're playing a different character whose life has nothing to do with the dead character. But still, what do you do with the body? Now, fortunately, you don't need the whole body for any of these spells. You could cut off her head and take it with you. You could just take a finger with you. We know that has happened on multiple occasions where people have carried around just the body parts. In fact, one of the last 5e games I played in, a character died and she was, we were like, we're going to bring you back, but there's not a lot left of you. Just basically, there's enough of you left to, hold on in basically a cup, So we've got this. What's left of this dead character in a jar. The player was playing an NPC, and we kept joking how the evil characters were sticking a straw in her jar and sipping at it every time she got uppity, so that she'd be like, okay, no. We'd be like, tasty, and then. So they could bring a body part with her. They could bury her and have some type of ceremony. And then when the time is right, resurrection, reincarnate, wish, miracle, deus ex machina, all sorts of otherworldly spirits, plus whatever, like stated in the spoilers, Mercer's character was hauling around the spirit of a dead bad guy from season 1. So there's a whole bunch of options from that too, because what does the dead bad guy's spirit want? Are they now free to have control over the body? That'd be cool. Are they banished and can't come back because the body's dead? Is the body completely destroyed? Is there enough left to do something? How do you bring an unhallowed one back to life? And if you do bring them back to life, are they still an unhallowed one? Does Marissa want the character to come back? What does Marissa and Matt have planned? Because now they have time to talk about it. And we don't know. They could have been texting each other under the table going, okay, and I've got to leave, guy, because, the table's dead. So we don't know. I would wait till next week. But bottom line, D&D, any role-playing game, the rule is, Mace Windu, you never saw the body. No dead character stays dead. The comic book rules apply. Turns out it wasn't them, it was a clone. Turns out it wasn't them, it was a twin. Turns out it wasn't them, it was a robot. Turns out it wasn't them. It was a doppelganger pretending to be them. Okay, they died, but they come back. And when they come back, they're a different gender or a different class, or they have new powers, or they come back with a friend, or they, completely different character who has no memory whatsoever of the past, or they just play a different character. And then 4 years from that day, something happens where that character can come back to life. Bottom line, if you're upset because Marissa's character died, just imagine how upset she is, but don't let it affect your everyday life. If you're experiencing mental and emotional anguish over this event, talk to someone. This is a game. A game, okay? It's not therapy. It's not a life engine. It's not a golden guide to how to change the world. It's not actively doing good or making the world a better or worse place. It's not anything more or less than a game of let's pretend and make believe. The death of a player character should be no more or less meaningful than a death in a video game or, whatever else. They're not real, okay? I mean, if your mom dies, that's something real. And maybe the death of a character triggered that memory, and that's okay. Because there are safe places in place for you to deal with that trauma. And that's called psychologists and therapists. D&D is not therapy. Your dungeon master is not a therapist. Your dungeon master should never say they're a therapist. Okay? Or that D&D is therapy. No, because that's just a whole legal nightmare that we don't want to get into in this vlog because I've already wasted 20 minutes of your time. What do you think would be the proper thing to do going forward if there was a character death in your game? Would you tell the player to leave? Would you stop the game? Would you continue the game and just go, dude, you're dead. We'll deal with it. If you need a minute, that's okay. But everybody else came here. We want to play. So do you want to play an NPC? Do you want to play another character? Do you want to play the bad guys? I bet you if you offer somebody whose character just died a chance to be the monsters, they'll probably want to go, yeah, I'll play the monsters. Fuck Steve for making fun of my death. Yeah. I'm the OGGN. Let me know what you think. Comment down below. Please like, please share, please subscribe. Please support me. Don't forget I have new merch for 2022, the West Coast Groganod fashion line. Coming at you. Have a great Saturday. Stay safe. It's gonna be a weird winter. See ya next time. And get off my land.